Everyone. This is the House Judiciary Non Civil Committee. We are here to have a hearing on House Bill 673 by Representative John Carson from East Cobb. The meeting today, members, is a high-level, what I'll call a high-level hearing. As you know, Representative Carson chaired a study committee in the interim on the issue of distracted driving. I thought it would be beneficial for members of the full committee to have really a similar meeting that the study committee had over the interim to get a high-level view, separate and apart from the pending legislation, at least initially, on the issue of distracted driving, to have the benefit of not only Representative Carson's testimony, but of the speakers that we have listed on the schedule today, Mr. Harris Blackwood of the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, Colonel Mark McDonough, the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, as well as members of the public who have personal experience with the issue, and some of that experience having been the most tragic of experiences. Ms. Kathy Clark, and I understand we're also going to hear from two other members of the public, interested parties, Ms. Natalie, is it Bacho, sorry, and Ms. Sherry Madliak. I apologize if I hope I'm getting that name right. We'll go in the order in the members that you have in the folder. I've asked Representative Carson if he could hold to 10 minutes and then to respond to questions from the membership. I'm going to ask Mr. Blackwood, Colonel McDonough, and then Ms. Clark, Ms. Bacho, and Ms. Madliak to do the same. I'll remind them, witnesses, as we go along. That'll afford the opportunity for members to listen and to learn. And then we'll have questions after that. And then I think what we'll do, the anticipation is that after we have this hearing today, then we'll proceed in what I'll call a normal bill consideration posture. But I thought it would be beneficial, given the magnitude of the issue, given the interest in the issue, for the full committee, as opposed to initially in the subcommittee, to have the full committee to have this high-level view of the issue, as the study committee did, and hopefully benefit by it, as I think the study committee did as well. So with that table setter, I'll call on Representative Carson, and the floor is yours. Let me take 1 minute, Representative Carson. I apologize, and welcome a new member of the committee, Representative Deborah Gonzalez. Welcome to the committee. Representative Gonzalez won a special election recently. It was assigned to our committee. I know that she'll be an asset to the committee and to our process here. I'd encourage you, as I encourage all members, there used to be, when I was first elected a generation ago, there was an old adage, or if you can call it that, where new members were supposed to be seen and not heard, and I just don't subscribe to that. I believe in jumping in, and I think new members ought to jump right in. I would encourage forethought before jumping in, but don't be afraid to jump in either. So just know that going in, and welcome to you, and again, congratulations. Representative Carson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate you being here today. It promises to be a thorough issue to discuss on distracted driving. Just a little bit of background before we dig into a lot of details. You may have seen this already. This issue for me did not start with an accident, did not start with a fatality or a crash or what have you. This started for me in last year's House Insurance Committee discussing what is causing the significant rise in insurance premium rates all across Georgia. In 2016, we led the nation at 12% average auto increases. That's per NAIC. And so working with various groups, including Chairman Richard Smith, Chair of Insurance Committee, we looked at what Jack Welch talks about peeling back the onion. What's causing this? I will tell you from the Department of Insurance standpoint, there's 200 auto underwriters in the state of Georgia, so we obviously have a free market. What's causing these huge premium increases? And we basically went back and saw that there was a huge increase in the number of crashes. Not just number of crashes, but severity of crashes. And you take a look at that and what's going on. You have a large number of rear-end collisions, single car crashes, and crashes by drivers aged 15 to 25. So what's causing this? It's not weather related. It's not the abuse of alcohol, DUI. It's not the abuse of drugs. What's going on, and why we've had a 35% increase in crashes, a 34% increase in fatalities, that's from 2014 to 2016, is the distractions that we're dealing with. We all see it on the roads. We do have a no texting law in Georgia. Many people misunderstand that. They think they can still send a text at a light. They think they can, well, I'm not sending a text, but I can still browse the internet. I can still send a Facebook message or what have you. That is a misunderstanding of the law. So we formed a study committee to take a look at this issue. We went around the state. We had meetings in a meeting upstairs here at the state capitol, one in Warner Robins, listening to our friends in public safety who were standing behind me. Another meeting in Savannah, listening to people in the transportation industry. And a final meeting in Alpharetta, listening to people in the healthcare industry, some of Representative Betty Price's esteemed colleagues. And what we kept coming back to is distractions are literally killing Georgians repeatedly. I will tell you that I did not look at this initially from a fatality standpoint or injury standpoint. I looked at it to say, what is going on with these trends and what can we do about it? And the only answer that I've heard that seems viable is a hands-free law in Georgia. It seems to be the only valid option if we want to address this, if we have the political will to address this. And it also is a working law that 15 states have put into place, 15 states plus DC. And collectively, on average, they have reduced their fatalities by 16%, anywhere from 16 to 18% in 2 years after the law's passage. What you're going to hear today is a number of people in public safety, victims' families, and I'm happy to go through, if I may, Mr. Chairman, the study committee report. There's been some slight corrections and mistakes that were corrected. I would encourage you to take a look at page 5. I know it's a lengthy report, and I know it's a lot of data. Those of you who've been in the House probably used to the idea that I like a lot of data. But I would encourage you to look at page 5. At the top, Georgia's traffic crashes, like I said, have gone up from 2014 to 2016 by 36%. Fatalities are up 34%. Now, I've had a number of people say to me, well, a lot of things could be causing that, but the distractions that we've had in the past, such as food or drink or tobacco or children in the car or things like that, that's been the case for decades. This increase, second bullet, this increase in crashes and so forth is mainly in 3 types, as I said, rear-end collisions, single car crashes, and crashes by 15 to 25-year-olds. Here's a shocking statistic and rather morbid. The increased fatality is most notable, and when I say most notable, in 3 groups as a percentage: pedestrians, motorcyclists, and bicyclists. Mr. Chairman, when we were in Warner Robins, we had, there was one person from one of the police departments, and I believe another person from a state patrolman, a state trooper. He said to me, and I want all the committee to look at me, not the paper. I want everybody to look at me right now. He got up in front of me, Chairman Golick, and he said, look at me, look at my body language, look at my eyes, look at the back of my Android phone, and I want you to tell me what I'm doing. I said, sir, I have no idea what you're doing. He said, exactly. Now, in order to make a phone call on my Android, or maybe on an iPhone, I probably have to touch 19 buttons just to make a 10-digit phone call, because I have to pull up that particular app and make a phone call. But the point is unless you have a clear line of sight, which you don't when you, most of the time when you're traveling at 60 miles an hour, you have to look through your tinted window through the driver's tinted window to determine what they're doing on their phone. And I'm very much like the idea of limited government, and I don't want to know what they're doing on their phone. I just want to know that they're off their phone, not endangering my wife and myself and my children. But what the trooper said to us is, I have no idea what that driver is doing either. All I know is that they're on their phone. I don't know if they're dialing. I don't know if which is legal. I don't know if they're texting, which is illegal. And I don't know if they're on their internet, which is illegal. The current texting law is simply unenforceable. As a matter of fact, we also have data that we can show you that the number of fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, VMT is an abbreviation used in the industry. The number of fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled is more in 2016 in Georgia than it was in 2009, a year before the texting law took effect. More fatalities on a statistical basis, which looks beyond just population. We have more fatalities on a statistical basis now than we did before the texting law went into effect. Georgia leads the nation in auto insurance premium rates. We already talked about that. And we also had an entire meeting discussing the strains on public health infrastructure, the strains on our trauma care units, the strains on our emergency rooms. And I would like to point out, I don't know on a cursory look, who do we have from rural Georgia, but I will say, based on data from the Georgia Office of Highway Safety, the rural areas are particularly afflicted by this issue because if you're in a traffic accident, crash, forgive me, crash is a more preferred word in this setting. If you're in a traffic crash, you're twice as likely to die in that crash in the rural areas than you are if you're in the metro. And there's several reasons for that. One, you're much more likely to be at much higher speeds, 60, 70 miles per hour. Two, you're going to be on an undivided highway. I think Representative Price and I probably travel Roswell Road and Johnson's Ferry Road quite a bit. That's a divided highway. So many highways in rural Georgia are not. And third, in the metro area, you're much closer to a trauma, a well-equipped trauma center, level 1, level 2, what have you, probably 5, 10, at most 15 minutes away. That's not the case in rural Georgia. And I would like to point you to one thing on that last bullet on that page. Of the 15 states plus DC that have enacted hands-free laws, 13 of these states saw an average 16% decrease in traffic fatalities in 2 years after the law's passage. And they also saw a higher percentage of decrease the further you go out.
Let me ask you to repeat that.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, let me go back to the data. If I could encourage the members to go back to